So, so you're Rob, you're leading into a little bit of kind of the final set of questions or vein of conversation that I have for our session today. Because we've talked quite a bit about, this, to thine own self be true concept, know yourself, take the assessment, all of that. And then earlier in the conversation, we were talking about, using this word professional, so, sales professionals or professional salespeople. And Paige mentioned, because there's a lot of skill that goes into that. So I want to touch on that now and ask, and I know the answer to this, but just as a way to start the conversation, and Rob, I'll start with you here. So how much really for the top performers, the people that are really on the top of their game, those top sales pros, and I'm sure you guys know some of them, and people watching this, you probably know of or know some yourselves. How much really is it, that innate ability, personality, if you will, versus learned behavior and skills? I know there's a balance there, but just Rob, what's your take on that? Innate ability versus learned skills.
I'm a fan of jazz music. So Thelonious Monk, I would argue, had some very natural innate skills. It was something that he loved to sit down at the piano, and as a proxy and a byproduct of that, he spent more time at it and studied other artists and then developed a style of his own. But it was in the spending countless hours to become great at his craft that he is who we know today, with an amazing library of work. Oddly enough, the second time this week that I've been on a podcast episode and referenced Thelonious Monk. So you can tell where I've been listening to on vinyl over the weekends lately. So forgive me. But in the same way, I would say that a professional salesperson, it requires both. It requires some natural inclinations, but then time invested in study and experimentation and practice. When I started my career, and really even as a precursor to my career, I had a mentor and dear friend who gave me my first sales book, which was the Little Red Book of Selling. And I give this to any sales hopeful that knocks on my door and says, I want to get into sales. Where do I start? So I keep a copy of this at the ready at all times, because it was the first time I had ever really given any thought to the study, right? If someone is going to be an attorney or a physician or a dentist or name the career, you obviously understand that there's education required to get to that place where they can actually practice that craft. I would argue that for the very best, sales is no different. It takes a lot of different forms. You can, like in many other trades, learn on the job. It can be a slow slog and hard way to learn, which is in many ways how I started, until I was fortunate enough to have some good coaches and managers that introduced me to professional sales training. And I can identify those as inflection points in my career where I moved to a kind of another plane. So I guess to answer your question, Michael, it's kind of yes and, right?
Yes.
It's identifying that, one, this is something you want to do, and two, you're willing to invest the time and energy to learn how to do it well.
Let me ask the same question in a different way. And Paige, I'll ask your take on this.
Okay.
So you can often have in a larger organization, sales professionals that are with the same company. They're selling the same product. I mean, they have different territories, let's say, selling same company, same product. One is perennial President's Club, and one is perennial middle of the pack. What do you think sets those two apart? I mean, I know there's lots of variables here, but in general, what are some of the things that might set those two apart?
Well, so let me qualify just a little bit. Are we assuming that they've had the same training and the same amount of time in the role?
Let's assume that they've had the same on-the-job training and the same amount of time in the role.
Okay. Well, I think it's definitely going to come down to, are they in the right selling role for them? I do think there are some people who are better at it than others. And I would go back to what Rob just said. It's an and situation. You do need that natural ability. And for each different type of selling, there's a different natural ability you can lean into. But if I'm looking at two people, one that's at the top of the President's Club every year and one that's middle of the pack, I would say you need both in some cases as a company. But I would also say it comes down to the wiring and who they really are. And some people are just better at it than others. Sales is not a game that you can walk into with a rote answer for. You have to adapt. You have to understand your client's needs. They're certainly not all the same. And think about how many different types of surgeons are out there. There's some that are going to be better than others. Teachers, anything else that you can set up as a professional career, there are just going to be different levels of ability.
It's a living and breathing game of improvisational theater to some degree. And if you've ever studied improv, those performers spend an entire week in rehearsal, right? And then you ask the question, well, how do you rehearse for something that is supposed to be spontaneous? Well, it is spontaneous, but there are rules within which they operate so that performance on Friday night goes the way that it can and should, and is good for the audience. So it's very unique in terms of the profession in that capacity. To give you a very specific example, I started in my dental career on the same day with another gentleman. He'll know I'm talking about him, but he was rookie of the year that we started, has continued to build just an absolutely phenomenal career. I mean, he is hands down one of the very, very best sales professionals I've ever had the privilege of working with and knowing. And he just continues year in and year out to perform, and he has stayed in that vein, right? He knew that that's what he wanted to do and how he wanted to spend his career, and he's great at it. He and I had different skills. We've gone to some degree in different ways, but if you were to isolate that job that we were both hired for as field sales reps in dental, he ran circles around me then and would still continue to do so today. Now, I think I have other contributions that I can make to the organizations that I'm lucky enough to be a part of, and contributions to the industry as a whole. That neither is better or worse, just different. So anyway, I don't know the point of that story other than to illustrate that we are all different, and there's different ways that you can grow within your career. And in some ways gets back to where we started the conversation, which is try as hard as you can to understand yourself and what gets you excited.
Yeah. So obviously I'm sensing a theme here to get to know oneself. I'm going to ask, this may be the final question, and I'm going to commit nearly the cardinal interviewer sin here of asking a question that could very well be a yes or no answer. And I'm hoping not to just have a yes or no answer. But again, thinking about these, top echelon, perennial President's Club type sales professionals, that's who we're thinking about right here. And thinking about those that you know and you've known through your careers across, I know we've talked about there's all sorts of different types, right? So across all the different types, can you think of traits that those top performers, generally speaking, have in common? And if so, what are some of those traits?
I'm waiting for you to answer this, Rob. The answer is yes, definitely. I'll tell you, as a recruiter, I'm looking for some very specific things when I have a client, and let's face it, every client asks for the President's Club Hunter. They don't always need exactly that, but to the degree that I'm regularly looking for the types of people that Rob just described, I would say that they, and this kind of comes back to the Strengths Finder and why I like it. I would say that they have hunting and closing ability in equal fashion. Those are two different strengths. One without the other could be, I love to get up in the morning, but I can't finish a conversation to get anybody to sign on anything. Or I'm so good at that signing conversation, but you can't get my butt out of bed. And so having those things in equal measures is really pretty important. They also are typically highly organized and focused, and relational on some level. There are different ways to be relational. Some are more long-term, some are quick, able to get into deep conversation fast with people, all different skills. So I would definitely say it's a combination of everything: relational, organized, focused, self-motivated, and able to influence somebody to complete a transaction. And all of those things have to be there.
Rob, what would you say common traits?
By design, it requires a tremendous amount of autonomy, especially for outside sales. So someone does need to be a self-starter. They've got to be able to get out of the bed in the morning. I've heard it said that the hardest door to open is the car door. So you got to leave the house. You got to go. You have to be organized and know where you're going. And candidly, I've been in ruts in my career where I get up and I don't know where I'm going on Monday morning. And guess what those weeks look like? They're garbage, and I don't accomplish anything. So it requires a lot of self-determination and willingness to be a self-starter, a lot of drive, got to be very organized. I would argue that the very best are strategic. They think about not just what's right in front of them, but what am I globally trying to accomplish within my territory, my business, my career. Most of them, I think, are also very entrepreneurial. They think of it very much as their own unique business. The company that they work for is just the deliverer of the goods in some cases. So that can be challenging as the organization. But I think the top performers definitely share that. And I think the very, very best are highly empathetic. They are able to deeply understand the person that they're sitting knee to knee with, ask very thoughtful questions about the challenges that they're facing, in order to then understand and back into the solutions that best meet that person's needs. So that's probably where I would line up my top skill set.
Well, I think that's also a great place to kind of wrap up this edition of Mentor Match Chats. I've learned a lot. Thank you guys for your contributions as always. Paige, once again, what's your book and where can we get it?
All right, so I'm going to duck out of the frame for a second and grab it for you.
Okay. So while Paige is, take it down. Here we go.
You can buy this from my website, paigemeadrecruiting.com. You can also buy it on Amazon if you want the electronic copy. It's called The Chocolate Room: Exploring the Dental Industry as Your Next Sales Career Destination. There it is. I don't know if you can actually even see that. But
now we can. There we go.
I can. Yeah, thanks for the chance. That was the result of 5 years of answering these types of selling questions for people and probably over 300 interviews.
Wow. And Rob, as always, thank you for your insights. really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your stories and your insights with us as well. So there you have it. We've learned a little bit about my voyeuristic tendencies, and we've learned obviously some great wisdom, if you will, advice from Paige and Rob, and I think the common thread was, it all starts here, understanding what your motivators are, and then obviously there's some skills and a lot of hard work at play. So thanks for joining us again, Paige, Rob. Thank you again as always. Can't wait to have you on again soon. And until next time, everyone, take care and be safe. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
Yeah, thanks a lot.